Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome. I'm very pleased to be joined by Vincent de Haes. Vincent is working for To70, which is a leading aviation consultancy, and he has a strong background in sustainability. So welcome, Vincent.
Thank you, Nadeem. I'm glad to be here.
Good. You're speaking obviously at the forthcoming SAF Congress in Amsterdam at the beginning of June. Can you give us a little bit of background to To70? It's an interesting business and an interesting name indeed.
Yeah. So what we do at To70 is we provide aviation-specific consultancy services to a lot of the stakeholders within the sector. So that's airports, governments, air navigation service providers, and a number of other clients. And we support them in developing and understanding what is new in aviation and what is happening to increase efficiency, at the same time ensuring safety, but also looking at all the sustainability topics, both locally in terms of things such as noise or local emissions, and globally in terms of carbon roadmaps or reduction policy for government.
Excellent. And I mean, in terms of your background, your personal background, you come from, I guess, from the sustainability world as opposed to the aviation or engineering world.
That's true. It was quite an interesting way to get involved. Early on already in my studies, I was studying sustainability, but I realized that aviation sector is a hard to abate sector, but it's also one that will remain, and therefore we need to change it and we need to adapt. And I stayed with that. And coming in, on the one hand, I can learn a lot from colleagues and from the things we're doing from a more engineering perspective. How do things work? But I also hope to provide some new insights and new ideas in terms of a way of looking at how we can achieve a sustainable aviation sector without an engineering background, but more from a stakeholder or partnerships engagement perspective.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of, I guess, looking at the aviation sector from outside, what are some of your thoughts? I mean, I guess you mentioned change, and I guess the aviation sector could perhaps be guilty of being a little uninnovative, if that's correct. The aircrafts are obviously very long-term pieces of kit. They have long life cycles. There is probably little innovation. Is that fair to say?
Well, I think on an incremental level, we've had a lot of innovation. Aircraft have continuously improved, and they've gotten more efficient and better. We also need to understand that these are very complicated machines that have to be improved, and the systems that would require a change are difficult. But we do need to head towards more radical innovation. Is my perspective. We need to understand as a sector that big changes are required to achieve the targets that have been set, both on a national and global level, and that requires completely new ways of looking at a way an aircraft functions, propulsion technologies are used, and also everything that is then surrounding that. So that also includes the different type of operations you do. Are we going to be able to continue flying in a hub and spoke model? Are we going to see more regional air aviation? And also looking at the reasons why we fly and what is really critical in terms of aviation. And I think that this has been happening more and more in the past 2-3 years. So there has been an increase in understanding that we need to speed up and we need to take a more radical perspective. I mean, looking back 3 years ago, if you'd mentioned hydrogen aircraft, you might have been laughed out of the room. And now everyone is inviting you in and wanting you to talk about what is going on there. So we see that going faster, but I think in the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to go even further.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of your thoughts around obviously the first piece of legislation is finally, hopefully, coming in terms of Refuel EU, and the target's supposed to be around that 5% mark by 2030. Is that it? Well, firstly, what are your thoughts around that legislation? Clearly, it's better than nothing, and clearly, it's going to help start moving the path to opening up different increasing the volume of, I guess, SAF fuels, and also acting as an agent of change. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so for Refuel EU is a critical part of the way forward for aviation in Europe, but it also has a written effect internationally with countries such as Singapore modeling, looking at also mandates or incentives. The United States, which is set not a mandate, but as an incentive fund. But you see that there's push for that. I think it's very good that we're developing this, because the sustainable aviation fuels are a short, medium, and also for a certain degree on a long term, really critical to get aviation to become sustainable. You mentioned, the 5% 2030, the 2% in 2025, which is expected to be set by this summer, so it's not completely in place. But these timelines, I think, they show that we want to take action, and the mandate shows that this will be required, so that we're battening down and saying this needs to happen. At the same time, we need to make sure we don't stop here, because a 5% is not enough to make aviation close to net zero. And to reach 2050, the timelines get shorter and shorter, and the scale up needs to go faster and faster. So it's not time to sit still and say we're done right now, because a lot more will be needed.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, if you take the view that climate change is only going to get worse, which really it seems to be, the pressure on the aviation industry is only going to increase. So they should be preparing for, I guess, radical innovation. Would you not think? And if they don't, then people will begin to be flying less. Is that not the clear, threat? We've obviously seen France, ban, I guess, domestic aviation. What are your thoughts around that? Does the aviation industry risk losing its public, as it were, or losing sort of public support?
Yeah, we have to be very careful for that. And you see some examples of that are airlines which have sustainability marketing strategies which are being checked carefully in terms of greenwashing. We, as a sector, need to be very careful that the skepticism that is currently surrounding aviation is proven wrong. And that requires meeting the targets, that the mandates. It means that that all the stakeholders in the sector support the financing of this, because these are long-term investment cycles. There won't be a return on investment in the next 2 or 3 years. We really need to take a long-term perspective and fund these developments. And that's all together. So I'm not saying that it's one party that needs to be doing it now. Governments need to support as well. But together, it's going to require a lot more to ensure that the general public does not start distrusting the aviation industry anymore, as you see in a few countries that are leading towards that edge.
Yeah, I mean, indeed, the governments, I guess, are critical, really, because no one's gonna finance a potentially much more expensive way to travel, and certainly it is, I guess, about breaking that technology in, and then costs come down. We've seen that on multiple fronts in the energy transition today, in fields such as solar and wind, and hopefully now, and also lithium-ion storage and batteries, and what we're seeing happening in the EV land-based powertrains. So yeah, it's a question, I guess, of moving and getting policy in place, which is going to help technology scale, and clearly it's not. The aviation industry needs support. It needs the policy framework, and then the financiers can help fund the energy transition or the technology transition. But yeah, there's clearly lots to be done, and I guess pace is the issue. You mentioned 5% by 2030, and that isn't clearly the stopping point, and it's about planning, the full sort of path to net zero.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, in terms of what can facilitate that, is that we share more. We need to understand that if one airport or one airline or one ANSP has a good system as understanding how these technologies work, how they'll impact operations, or how they'll change the way that we can interact with passengers, then that needs to be shared and spread, so that other airports and other governments can learn from that. And I think that's a critical part of connecting, and it's also something that we really try to look at 270, because we see that what is happening in Australia or what is happening in Europe might be also very relevant in Canada or the United States.
Yeah, I mean, clearly I agree 100%. The team here at Sustainable Aviation Futures is that's all we're dedicated to do is increasing that sharing, increasing the spread of best practice, and trying to connect the industry and accelerate the change and the projects and the learning across the board. And obviously that starts come June the 7th and 9th in Amsterdam. So it'll be our third or fourth event now. So yeah, we're looking forward to it. The industry is getting momentum. There's things happening, and we look forward to working with 270 at the forefront of this change and trying to speed it along as fast as possible. So thanks a lot, Vincent, for taking the time this morning to share some of your thoughts. We look forward to seeing you on the speaking platform at the SAF Congress. And going forwards on from there as well. So many thanks.
Great. Thank you as well. Look forward to it, Nadim, and we'll be in touch.
Excellent. Take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.